I first heard about this film earlier in the year or very late last year when I was making my list of most anticipated for 2024. And I'll tell you this right now, it did not disappoint. Oh, you guys, I just finished watching Wolves, starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I love this movie. I'm just getting that right out of the way. I am fresh off of watching it, so I am super excited because, as I mentioned in the intro, this film made my list of most anticipated for 2024. I had never heard of it before. I just saw the synopsis. It looked interesting. I saw Brad Pitt and George Clooney were involved. The synopsis is that George Clooney and Brad Pitt, they play fixers. They go into bad situations that need to be cleaned up and they clean them up. And this particular night follows their adventures as they both come into contact with each other and find that they have been put onto the same job. And so because they are solo workers, they work alone, they are lone wolves, they have some trouble being able to mesh well, but the funny thing is they're both very similar. This film starts off with a great hook. Right away, something has happened. George Clooney is called, and then shortly after that, Brad Pitt enters the scene. It grabbed you right away. I feel like this movie didn't overstay its welcome. There were comedic parts scattered throughout, and yet at the same time, it was serious to a degree. It wasn't goofy comedy, but there were definitely, for me, some laugh out loud moments. I mean, really laugh out loud moments. Now, it wasn't anything that had me rolling on the floor, but just these funny little comedic moments, the expressions on their face, certain things that would happen. Another thing I really liked about this film was that there were moments where my expectation or my prediction of what was going to happen completely went the other way. I appreciated that this wasn't super predictable. There were some predictable moments, but I liked that it wasn't totally predictable. I also liked the chemistry between Brad Pitt and George Clooney. They were both very funny. They played off of each other, serious but funny at the same time. Something that I didn't know when I started watching it, I found it out shortly after I began watching it, is that this was directed by, well, it was written, directed, and produced by Jon Watts. He did Cop Car, Clown, and he also did all three of the Spider-Man movies. Oh, something else he also did was he directed Venom 2's mid-credit scene, except he was uncredited. I knew once I found out who directed this that it was in the hands of a competent director. Of course, I didn't know, was it going to be satisfying all the way through? And for me, honestly, it was. I loved the writing in here. There was a convincing reason as to why both of these lone wolves had to work together when it goes totally against their nature. Their interaction with the people around them, or especially one particular person who gets kind of caught up in what's happening. And I'm not going to get into details about this sort of thing because I want you guys to go into this not knowing much about the plot, but their interactions with this person was pretty funny. It came to a satisfying conclusion, for me anyway. There were just a couple of things that stood out to me as something that I put in the con category. Maybe one of them, it's not fair to call it a con. One was that there's a moment where someone, Arturo, don't make any noise. I can't remember exactly what I was saying when he walked in, but I think it was something along the lines of, geez, honestly, I don't remember. The writing, convincing reason as to why they both had to work together. I also liked that they didn't really make a secret of the fact that these guys, they're not young ducks anymore. They are older. I mean, not that they're ancient, but they're older. They have these aches and pains. Ugh, getting down hurts their knees or their back. Ugh. It was funny the way they played on that whole theme throughout. I liked the score of this. It had very fitting music. It almost felt noirish, but a little bit mysterious and a tiny bit comedic and just intriguing. The music right away makes you interested. I like the way shots were framed. The editing was very well done. And like I said, the pacing. The comedy felt fitting. It didn't feel goofy. It didn't snap you completely out of the moment because there were still all these serious things going on around them, things that they had to figure out and stuff like that, and very real threat of death hanging over their heads because of the world that they lived in. And there was kind of a bit of a mystery going going on as they were trying to figure out who or what was behind this thing that they both were tasked with taking care of. It doesn't take long, like I said, to get really going. The hook is in the beginning, and then it's around the 25-minute mark. There is a complication that has been introduced, and by the 34 to 35-minute mark, there were some changes that happened, and the situation really ramped up. And then by the 47-minute mark, I did write these things down because it was just like, oh my gosh, another thing. Oh my gosh, what in the world? Little by little, these added complications were introduced to the story that just made it so much more intense, but in a good way. I loved so much about this movie. The cinematography. Did I already? Oh, I mentioned shots framed. There was a scene where a person gets hit by a car, and the way that was filmed was so well done. I was glad it was shown in slow motion because the way it was all put together was just, I mean, it was terrible. You're seeing someone get hit by a car, but the way it happened was perfection. And you will know what I'm talking about when you see it. Anyway, overall, this was an absolute blast to watch. I had a big grin on my face so many times when I was watching it just because I was having so much fun. I think what I was getting ready to talk about before I got interrupted was a couple of things that I put down in the con category. They're nothing major, nothing that destroys anything for me as far as this film goes, but one was there was a little editing mishap. When someone reaches for a pager, there's something in the way, and then when you see the shot, it's not there anymore. Very teeny tiny little thing. And then another, there is a moment where a bad person figures out something about these two guys. I wasn't sure how he figured it out. Maybe I was missing something, but I felt like it was a little bit too quick, too convenient to be piecing that together. That was really one of the only other things I could put down as a con. Other than that, this film was an absolute blast. Arturo, you're going to like this movie. I hope you will like this movie too. If you get around to watching it, let me know what you think about it. I believe it premieres on September 27th. I'm not sure if this review will go up before or after that. I'm getting ready to go out of town, but I did want to watch this before I left. Forgot to mention something for you guys to keep an eye out for. Shortly after the credits start, pretty much almost immediately after the credits start, there is a little scene that shows you what happened leading up to the events of the movie. So be sure to stick around a little bit after the credits, at least, to watch that. It's nothing that fundamentally changes the story, just kind of fills in some of the gaps. Okay, back to the video. I had hoped it was going to go to the big screen, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It's really a shame too. It's not necessarily anything you absolutely need to see on the big screen, but it would be so much more fun if you could. Oh well. Anyway, this is just me telling you guys about the upcoming Apple TV Plus film Wolves, starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt. If you get a chance to check it out, let me know what you think. And that's it for this one, you guys. Later. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun!